Today we are going to talk about the most basic grouping of stars, and this grouping will be based on how we see them, which is apparent brightness. Now, so you see in the night sky, if you can think of it, there are so many celestial objects which we can see, right? So what we want to do is would like to group them together. This is the first step, and then we will try to see if there is any difference between them, if we can find out certain regularities, and as a result we can find various groups, and if it will be possible to distinguish these different groups. So the first thing that we will be doing is we'll be doing a one-dimensional plot, right? One-dimensional grouping. So basically what we want is we want to see how these stars, how many of them are there, and that will be as a function of increasing brightness, right? So how many of them have low brightness, how many of them will have very high brightness, and so on and so forth. But before we move forward, we have to first define this axis, that is, how are we going to quantify this brightness stuff, increasing brightness. So will we be using our naked eyes, or will we be using telescope? How do we proceed? What do you think? Well, obviously the first thing is our naked eyes. Long before people have seen stars, they have tried to classify this question which I have just asked you. This has been pondering the mankind for very large period of time, right? Over the ages, people have thought how to classify them. Now, before we do this, to find how many of them has what brightness, we have to first, as I was saying, we have to first clarify various brightness. What do we mean by that? Now, before I proceed forward with this quantification, it is important to know that a star, say this star for example, it might look bright to us for two reasons. One is it is intrinsically bright, and another is it is closer to us, right? So a really brighter star might appear faint because it is too far. So what are we going to do? As I was saying, we are going to measure the apparent brightness of these celestial objects or astronomical objects. But remember that if we want to really measure their intrinsic, if we want to measure the intrinsic or the real amount of luminosity, right now I am talking about photon luminosity, okay? Then we must take the distance into account. How far is this star compared to us on Earth? Now, regarding the quantification, the first thing which comes to mind is apparent brightness. Now, apparent brightness of a star is defined in terms of apparent magnitude of a star. Okay, so we will be basically using a scale based which will be a measure of this brightness. Okay, measure of this brightness. Now, you see, in the 2nd century before Christ, it was Hipparchus who was in fact the first astronomer to catalog stars, or basically group the stars in terms of 6 classes. He grouped the stars in 6 classes, and these classes are named as apparent magnitudes. So basically he grouped them into 6 classes or 6 apparent magnitudes by the relative brightness, as we can see on Earth. Come on, at that time we did not have any instrument, so we have to just use our naked eye on a clear clear night. Okay, now the brightest star in this cataloging, the brightest star were assigned the first magnitude. So what I mean to say is that brightest stars, they were assigned first magnitude. Or m is equal to 1, and the faintest star it was assigned the 6th magnitude. So m is equal to 6, and this is what was possible with visible eye. Okay, now we have to remember that this magnitude scale, this m is equal to 1 to m is equal to 6, what instrument are we using? We are just using our naked eye. Okay, now this magnitude scale of course is non-linear, because why? We are using our eye. And is the response of our eye linear? No. The answer is no. You see, the response of our eye to increasing brightness is nearly logarithmic. This response is nearly logarithmic. And so we have to define a logarithmic scale of magnitude such that it was observed that if this m is equal to 1 is the brightest star and this m is equal to 6 is the faintest star, then it was observed that this difference of 5 magnitudes from here to here, 5 magnitude, it corresponds to a factor of 100 in brightness. This difference of 5 magnitude corresponds to 100 in brightness. So you see this thing, this is magnitude difference of 5 and this is observed brightness difference of 5. So of course the first thing to note is that this scale is logarithmic. Well, you see the flux density received at Earth. Fine. Of course I can talk about in terms of brightness as well. Let me pause for some time. I will talk in terms of flux in a little bit, but first let me talk in terms of brightness. Now before I proceed, I have to define this apparent magnitude. Now what is this? Basically the apparent magnitude of an astronomical object is a measure. So it is a measure of how bright the object appears. Now according to this magnitude scale, as I have just shown you previously here, a smaller magnitude means a brighter star. Here, this one, this has magnitude 1. So we have to define such a thing. Now, so what do we want? We have to define a logarithmic scale, right? We have to define a logarithmic scale such that a difference of 5 magnitudes is equivalent to a factor of 100 in brightness. Now on this scale, the brightness ratio corresponding to 1 magnitude will be what? Of course, it will correspond to 100 to the power 1 by 5, or which is equal to 2.512. So a star having magnitude 1, okay, this star is 2.512 times brighter than a star of magnitude 2. Okay, so this is what we mean to say. So this is how we are defining the scale right now. Now let us move forward. Then you will see that let us make a mathematical relationship out of it. Suppose two stars have brightness B1 and B2, and their corresponding magnitudes are M1 and M2. So this is brightness and this is magnitudes for two stars 1 and 2. This is for star 1, this is for star 2. Now the relationship that we have been talking about will be then M1 minus M2 is equal to 2.5 into logarithm base 10 of B1 by B2. So this is how we define. Now let us check if it is correct or not. But before I do, let me write this equation in a different way. So of course we can write this in this way, B2 by B1. Let us write it there. So it will be B2 by B1 is equal to 100 to the power M1 minus M2 divided by 5. Now you see, as I was saying before, M1, if M1 is 6 and M2 is 1, so if M1 is equal to 6, very faintest star to the naked eye, and M2 is equal to 1, the brightest star to the naked eye, then what is M1 minus M2? It is equal to 5, and so 100 to the power 5 by 5 is just 100 to the power 1 or just 100. So this means, what do we have here? So this means that this star, as we were saying, this M2 is equal to 1, this is brighter by about 100. Now this is what we have observed before, previously, by Hipparchus, the observation. So we do have these two important relations where we have defined the apparent magnitude in terms of apparent brightness. Now you see, modern astronomers, let us come to our modern times now. Now modern astronomers, you see, use a similar scale for apparent magnitude, and modern astronomy has expanded this scale. So what scale I am talking about? I am talking about this scale. So the faintest one to the naked eye is m is equal to 6. But using modern astronomy, now it is possible to observe even lower values, m much lower than 6. I will just show you in a second. So you see, with the help of telescopes, many celestial objects, which is much fainter than the 6th magnitude, and again celestial objects which is brighter than the 1st magnitude, have been observed. So a magnitude of 0 or even negative magnitudes have been assigned now to extend this scale. Let me now show you some examples. So here I have shown you the apparent magnitude corresponding to the various objects. As you can see, our sun, it has an apparent magnitude, and I have done this plot over here. This line you see over this plot. Just a second. Okay. Just a second. Yeah, our sun has an apparent magnitude of -27 approximately, and the full moon lies over here, this place. It is around -12. So this means they are very bright. Remember, it is the logarithmic scale or the logarithmic response of our eye to photons which has caused these very brightest stars to have negative apparent magnitudes. And what about the fainter objects? They have got positives apparent magnitude. You see, the faintest detectable object using the Hubble telescope has an apparent magnitude of near about 30. Fine. Now, what happens to 0? Which star or which object does have it? Well, for historical reasons, star Vega was chosen to have this m is equal to 0. What about other planets? Well, for Venus, you see here, it has a value of -4.5. Even Pluto, it has a value around -15. It is very faint. So Venus is much more brighter than our Pluto. What about naked eye? The naked eye has a limit of around 5 or so. Now this is of course taking into account that we have a very clear night sky. So as I was talking previously, now we do have a magnitude scale, right? We do have a way of grouping the star. So we have so many stars, right? And now we are grouping this in terms of this apparent magnitude scale, okay, where we have negative and positive values as well. Now these positive are fainter objects and the negative are brighter objects. So this is it. But remember this apparent brightness and magnitude of a star, it does not give us any idea about the total energy emitted by the star, or also its distance, how far is it. Now the total energy emitted by a star can be obtained from the definitions of luminosity and radiant flux. Now what is the luminosity? Well, a luminosity of a star is defined as the total energy radiated by it. Now when I say total energy, I mean to say in all wavelengths, right? total energy emitted by it in all wavelengths per unit time, per second. Now this is the measure, this is the real measure of the intrinsic brightness of the star. Now, as I in the very beginning, I think in the lecture where I was talking about the observational constraints, there I talked about the solar luminosity, right, which is around 4 into 10 to the power 26 watts. Now it will be an interesting observation, but I'll tell you this: the luminosity of our galaxy, you know how much is it? It is of the order of 10 to the power 11 of that of solar luminosity. Very interesting. Okay. Now, what about radiant flux? Well, radiant flux at a given point is the total amount of energy flowing per unit time, per unit area of a surface oriented normal to the direction of propagation of radiation. So we can have surface like this, whether the surface is parallel or not, the radiation, which inclination it is facing the radiation from it, and also energy emitted in all wavelengths. So the total amount of energy flowing through this surface, what is the orientation of this surface? This is important. Flowing through the area, what is the area of the surface? Again, per unit time, per second. Fine. Now, the radiant flux of a source depends on two factors. Number one is the radiant energy. And number two, it is the distance of the source from our point of observation. Distance from the point of observation. Now suppose a star is at a distance r. You see, a star is at a distance, this is our earth, and the star is at a distance r from us. Then the relation between the radiant flux and the luminosity of the star is how much? You see, the relationship goes like this: F is equal to L by the total surface area. No, not the total surface area. This is how much energy is being emitted in this entire virtual sphere around the star, and we are just absorbing or getting only this part. Okay, so we have to take into this account, right? Now, the energy from a source received at any point determines the brightness of this object. So, this F is related to our brightness B of the source. Remember, L is intrinsic here and F is what we are observing, and this is what is related to the brightness, because using this brightness we have defined our magnitude scale. So this means that B2 by B1 is just equal to F2 by F1, and so using our previous relation we can write like this: 100 to the power m1 minus m2 divided by 5. I think you remember, where was it? Here, you see. So this is the relation in terms of apparent brightness, and now we are defining this in terms of radiant flux. Okay, so now the next what we are going to do, we are going to do a very interesting thing. We are going to define a second grouping of stars. Now let me first tell you about it. So the first what we did was, there were so many stars and we just tried to align them on a single line, okay, So we have brighter group and we have the fainter group, and so on and so forth. Now, but remember that if this is Earth, then from our Earth, some stars are close, some stars are far. Some are close, some are far. And now, if we know the distance between all of them, and also we know the brightness from them, will it be possible to move, if it is possible, just I am saying, to move all the stars to at some particular distance from the Earth, to move all the stars on this sphere which is at some particular distance, say capital D, to move all the stars on this sphere, and then we compare the apparent magnitudes of them. So this is what we are going to do now. This is the second grouping. The first grouping was in terms of just apparent magnitude. That was the first grouping. And now the second grouping is in terms of absolute magnitude, where we will be, after knowing the distance of the stars from us, we will try to do a sort of experiment, you can say. This is very easy, and what we will be doing, we will be, as if you can think that we will be making all these stars fall on a sphere where the distance d will be 10 parsec, and this is how we define the absolute magnitude. Let me clarify even more. So absolute magnitude we are going to define. Now, as I was saying, a star's apparent brightness, it does not tell us anything about the luminosity of the star, as observed, right, previously from this relation. Now, we could easily compare the true or intrinsic brightness of stars if we could line them all at the same distance. This is what I was saying. And now the first definition for this is, for this type of grouping, is the absolute magnitude, and this is defined in terms of capital M. This is denoted by that. So an absolute magnitude of an astronomical object is defined as, again, the apparent magnitude. So it is again the apparent magnitude if the astronomical object were at a distance of, if it is at a distance of 10 parsec from us without any absorption of its light due to absorption by the interstellar dust particles, and this is sometimes also known as interstellar extinction or dimming of light. Remember that 1 parsec is equal to 3.26 light years. Okay, so how do things change because of this? Now again, as before, let us consider a star which is at distance r from us, and this is where we are at Earth, and this star has an apparent magnitude small m, intrinsic brightness or luminosity capital L, and also radiant flux F1. These are the properties of the star. Now suppose the same star, if it is placed, now we are moving this star at a distance of, say, 10 parsec from us. From us means this is where we are, so this is the sphere. Yeah. Yes, this is how it should be. Let me redraw this. My drawing is not correct. So if this is Earth, okay, let me draw a line, and so this is the circle, so sphere like this. Now previously the star was at a distance r, having apparent magnitude L and also radiant flux F1. Now if we move this star from this distance r to our distance of 10 picoparsecs, then, and in this case what will we have for this star? We will have absolute magnitude m. Of course the luminosity will not change, but the radiant flux will change, F2. So using the just previous equation which we have written before, I think, where was it? Just a second. Yes, if we use this relation, then we will have, yeah, we can write like this: F2 divided by F1 is equal to 100 to the power small m minus capital M divided by 5. And since L is constant for the star, so we have, again using the previous relationship where F was proportional to, remember what we have before, you see, F was proportional to 1 by r square. You must remember this relationship. This comes from here, right? So if we remember this, then we will have here F2 by F1 is equal to r parsec divided by 10 parsec whole square. Now if we use both these relations together here, if we use them, then we will have a very interesting relationship, which is small m minus capital M is equal to 5 log r base 10 minus 5. This is a very important relationship, and here this small m minus capital M, you see, it is a measure of distance, and this is known as distance modulus. Okay, it is also interesting to know that if M1 and M2, capital M1 and capital M2 are the absolute magnitudes of two stars, then using our previous relationship we have L2 by L1. Which relationship I am talking about? Well, I am talking about this relationship over here, this one. Using this, you see, we can have L2 by L1 is equal to 100 to the power M1 minus M2 divided by 5. Again, this means that M1 minus M2. Now we have a relationship in terms of capital M's. Previously we have small m, now we have capital M. This one, this thing, equal to 2.5 log L2 by L1. Okay, thus what do we observe? We observe that the absolute magnitude of a star is a measure of its intrinsic brightness. Now you see, this is what I was talking previously here. Yeah, here. So a star's distance, if we can move to a distance, known distance, if we can move all the stars on a sphere where the radius is 10 parsec, then the apparent magnitude will be known as absolute magnitude. Okay. Now here, for some objects, I have given both the values of apparent magnitude as well as absolute magnitude. You see, for the sun, this is the value here, and also for full moon. Interestingly, you see, the sun, which has a visual magnitude of minus 27 apparent, and a 100 watt bulb at 3 meter distance has a apparent magnitude of minus 17. So this means that apparent magnitude of sun is higher. Now, however, if we calculate the absolute magnitude, then see what happens. We have a difference over here. Remember, the higher value means they are more faint. So again, same thing has been reflected over here, a higher value. So even this is nothing compared to the brightness of the sun, 100-watt bulb at 3 meter distance. For full moon, the apparent magnitude was minus 12.5, and this has a value of minus 32, absolute magnitude. Okay, now this is the case for the 6 brightest star as seen from the earth. So I have shown you the values for as well as the distance. Now values for both apparent and absolute magnitudes have been given for Sun, Sirius, Canopus and Alpha Centauri, as well as Arcturus and Vega. Okay, now before I finish, let me tell you, so what were we doing? Basically how we play the game is this: we measure the parallax. So if this is a here, if just a second, yeah, here, if this is our star at this point, then from the earth in its orbit we will be able to measure the parallax P over here, and then from the parallax we can determine the distance D, and this distance will help us to estimate the luminosity after we measure the apparent brightness B. So using this relation 4 pi d square into B, we can get the luminosity. Now if we use the luminosity and the spectrum of the light emitted from a particular star and the information of the luminosity, then you see, using this relation 4 pi r square into sigma t to the power 4, we would be able to remember, if we have the spectrum from the star, then we can have, assuming black body radiation, we can get an idea about the surface temperature. So if we have the surface temperature, if we have the luminosity, then from this relation we can get a idea about the radius. So this is how normally astrophysicists, they determine distance, luminosity and thereafter the radius of a star. Now, so let me quickly talk about 3 very interesting problems. I mean, it would be injustice if we did not discuss any questions related to that, and I'm not going to talk about trivial questions where we just compare the brightness or the magnitude or so. A little bit non-trivial these questions will be. The first one is, suppose a nearby star has a parallax angle of 20 milliarcsecond. So the value is this. Now if the star has an apparent magnitude of 6, then what is its absolute magnitude? And is it more or less luminous than our sun? Now what we do? Well, of course we use the distance and parallax relation, and using this we can find the value of D. Then we put the D in you see, what do we have? We already have the apparent magnitude M, right? So if we put the D over value of D, then we can find the value of absolute magnitude, and from there we can say that since the value of absolute magnitude, which comes out to be around 2.5, we can say that this is more luminous than the sun, because sun, because its value is lower. Okay. Now for the next question here, by considering the combined flux, this is the question on combined flux. Okay. By considering a combined flux, now determine the combined apparent magnitude of a binary star system consisting of 2 stars of apparent magnitudes 3 and 4. Now here the first star has apparent magnitude 3, second one 4. So what is the ratio of the brightness? We can get it instead of radiant flux as well. Here instead of capital F we have small f. And so let me now talk in terms of the sum of the two stars, combined flux. So the combined flux will be the sum of them, which comes out to be 3.512 F2. And again, using the relationship, normal relationship, with respect to the second star, we can get this value. And so finally we have a combined apparent magnitude of 2.6. See, the value is lower, so it is more bright. Yes, this is more bright, lower value. Okay, so here in this case you see the brightest star, absolute magnitude. If we know the distances, what does this mean? This means that this Canopus star is so much brighter than the sun. Similarly, Alpha Centauri is much brighter than the sun. Vega, even Vega is much more brighter than the sun. Okay, and in this case also, here this one, Andromeda Galaxy, which is the furthest naked eye object, it has an absolute magnitude of -21. It is much brighter. We do know that, of course. I'm just showing you this in terms of absolute magnitude. So now, after this combined flux problem, let me talk about the last problem, and this is a very interesting one. Here we'll be talking about the space density of galaxies. So the question is, let us first talk about the Milky Way galaxy. Now you see the Milky Way galaxy has an absolute magnitude of -20, and there are approximately 10 to the power 4 Milky Way like galaxies which are brighter than the 14th magnitude over the whole sky. Fine. So this has been found after a lot of observations, of course. And the question is, what is the space density of galaxies? How many galaxies are there per megaparsec cube? And what is megaparsec? Well, 1 megaparsec is 10 to the power 6 parsec. So the first thing we do is, using the distance modulus relation, which was written in terms of parsec, let me now rewrite the distance modulus relation in terms of megaparsec. Now it is quite simple and straightforward, and doing this we get a modified version where the units are in terms of megaparsec. Now if we put the values of this absolute magnitude here, right, then we get and also we have the small m, 14th magnitude, small m. If we put these values, then we get the distance of 43 megaparsec. So this means, how much is the volume? It is quite easy to calculate, and you will see it comes out around 10 to the power 6 megaparsec. And since it was initially mentioned that there were 10 to the power 4 Milky Way like galaxies, so the number density of galaxies is 10 to the power 4 galaxy divided by 10 to the power 6 megaparsec cube, and this number is very interesting. It comes out to be approximately 1 Milky Way like galaxy per 100 megaparsec cube. Okay, so that's for today.